Hello, everybody. Let's start this big session of critical reasoning. Hope you'll enjoy. So, at first, we have this paradox question. Let's read it. In the United States, profits from sales of Grainco's biggest selling product, cornflakes, have dropped by 30% over the last 3 years. So, the first thing that we understand from here is that there is this company Grainco, and one of its most dominant product, which is the most widely sold product, is cornflakes, right? And we have seen there is a drop in the profits from this major flagship product of the company, right? And the next thing is, during the same time, the value of the share of Grainco stock rose by over 20%. This is puzzling because the value of the stock usually decreases when a company's sales decreases, right? So we see that there is a antagonistic thing happening here, that when there is a drop in the sales and the revenue of conflicts, then there should be a drop in the overall revenue, in the overall stock prices of the company. But what we witness is completely the opposite thing. We see that there is a 20% rise in the stock value of the company shares, right? So this is not something that happens generally. Now, this is the typical pattern of a paradox question, where things happen completely different from the normal phenomena. Things are abnormal here, but you need to explain that why this abnormality takes place. Which of the following, if true, during the last 3 years most helps to explain why the value of share of Grainco stock moved in the way that it did? So now you need to explain this gap, that why, in spite of the losses, there is a rise in the value of the shares, right? So let's look into the options. Severe drought in the Midwest destroyed a large percentage of the corn crop, forcing Grainco to buy less corn. Now, for example, there is a for example, like there might be a disaster, and there might be some external forces that might have led to the lesser procurement of crops by this company. But that may explain why there was a loss, but that will not explain why there was a rise in the value of the shares of the company. Now, let me explain it further. It means that when there is a drought, then definitely the supply and the production of the cornflakes would have been less, right? So that do makes us understand that why there is a loss, but this doesn't make us understand that why there was a rise in the value of the stocks, right? So the phenomena of this paradox still remains. It's still in ambiguity. It does explains this option does explain that why there was a drop in the revenue from conflicts, because there was lesser produce. But that doesn't explain why there is a rise in the value of the shares. Now let's look into the second option. The second option says Grainco's closed a food processing plant in locality that offered cheap labor and low taxes. So that looks like a very minor reason for such humongous rise in the shares value. So this company has closed a food processing plant unit, right? So because of this, it can save some labor and some taxes. But so there is a minor a minor revenue that it can save from this activity, from by closing down some food processing plant. But that doesn't explain why there will be a 20% rise in the entire share value of the company, right? Just saving a few cheap labor and some low taxes, that doesn't make a very strong argument. Let's see if we have a better option than this, whether we have a better alternative source of revenue that might help in the rise of this stock values. So yes, we have another one, option number C, profits from sales of Grainco's oatmeal. Okay, so there is this another product which account for a large part of Grainco's total sales and profit. Now, this accounts for a large part of Grainco's total sales and profit, and that has increased dramatically. Look at the words that the author has chosen. So, in the entire sales, a major chunk, that is more than 50%, this oatmeal is responsible for the sales, right? So it holds a major share in that entire sales chart. And also it is said that there is a rise in the demand and profits from this product dramatically. So now we can see that if this holds a major share, and if the prices and the profits and the demand have increased, so definitely it could have been the alternative for conflicts, right? So we from this we can understand why, in spite of a lower revenue or a lower sale volume of conflicts, why there is a rise in the stock value of the company, because the oat mills replaced or substituted the sales number of the conflicts, right? So that looks like a very strong option, of obviously better than B. Now, let's look into the option number D. Grainco's employees formed a union that helped them get higher salaries and increase medical benefits. Now, that is not something that explains this phenomena directly, because you see, if the employees are getting higher salaries and increased medical benefits, then definitely the company will have to, invest more. It will add on to its expense rather than profit. So that straight away will not explain the paradox. And number E, several articles in prominent business publication listed Grainco as a company that has poor management. So if various articles suggest that Grainco has poor management, so definitely it will lead to losses. But that doesn't explain why, in spite of the losses, can the rise of the stock values occur. So we see that we have number C as the most prominent answer. Let's move into the next question. So we have a weakening question here. Let's read it. Dutch elm disease, which is caused by the fungus C. almi, spread by adult scoleted beetles, has already destroyed 70% of the elms in Greenwood Forest. So we have a forest, we have a variety of elms there, and we have this disease called Dutch elm disease, and which is spread by this fungus C. almi, and which is further spread by this adult scoleted beetles. Let's make a small chart of this. So there is this elm forest affected by C. almi fungi and C. almi fungus, yes, and it is spread by this scoleted variety of beetles. Now, another naturally occurring fungus, P. oblonga, kills larvae of the scoleted beetles. So we have another fungus known as P. oblonga. Now this is like a medicine, or it attacks these scoleted beetles, right? So we have this kind of flowchart here. And forest rangers plan to introduce P. oblonga into the Greenwood Forest in order to save the remaining mature elms. So 70% of the plants has been destroyed, and the remaining 30% they are trying to save, right, by introducing this new fungus that can help in killing these agents of that spread C. almi fungus, which is deadly to the elm forest. So we need to weaken this. Let's read the question. Which of the following, if true, would cast the most serious doubt on the plan prospective for success? So which of the following should be correct to, for the failure of the plan, right? Or which of the following should be true for the plan not to work, for the plan to fail? So which of this following, if true, can lead to the failure of the plan? In simple language, if I say, that is the meaning of the question. So let's choose which of them casts a doubt on the success of this P. oblonga medicine. So during the last year, the scoleted beetle population in Greenwood Forest has decreased by 30% because of cold weather condition.
So we see there is a decrease, there is definitely a decrease in scarlet beetle, which may lead to, the better survival of this forest. But however, we see the cold weather conditions were responsible for the drop in the population of this scarlet beetle. We nowhere see the role of P. oblonga in the decrease of this scarlet beetle, right? So we cannot say that this is not affecting, or this is not effective in reducing the population of scarlet beetle, right? Only if this has been applied, and then scarlet beetle's population would not have decreased, then we can say that yes, P oblonga has not worked. But we see that there is no introduction of P oblonga in this option, right? So we cannot cast a doubt on the effectiveness of P. oblonga fungus. Let's look into the next option. It says that Dutch elm disease cannot be abated by introducing chemical compounds used to arrest the disease of many other species of tree. Now, in this option, P. oblonga is not at all introduced, right? So it says that chemical compounds that are used to arrest the disease of many other species of trees. So here some chemical compounds are used on other species of tree, not the elm plants, right? So we cannot say that this P. oblonga will not work on the elm trees. We in this forest we have elm trees, right? We have elm trees here, and this is talking about other species of tree, and we don't know that these other species of tree belong to this elm species or not, right? So we cannot say that whether oblonga is useful in treating the disease or not, right? First of all, P. oblonga has not been used in this option, right? And second, other species of tree has been talked about, not the elm tree that we are dealing with. Number C, introduction of P. oblonga saved elm trees in neighboring Gatemer and Lavemont forest. Now this looks like a strengthening option, right? We need to weaken here. If P. oblonga works on elm trees in neighboring Gatemer and Lavemont forest, so it shows that definitely it may work. It strengthens, bolsters the argument of the author. It shows that yes, P. oblonga is an effective medicine. It can be an effective medicine in treating, the variety of plants that are affected, right? Though this option doesn't suggest that it will help in specifically treating the Dutch elm disease of this specific forest, right? But we do get an idea here that this option may strengthen the option rather than weakening it, so we won't choose this option at all. Option D says, for P. oblonga to control scarlet beetle successfully, it must be established in a forest prior to the beetle infestation. Now, whenever we are dealing with weakening question, it is not only the conclusion or the assumption that we need to weaken. It is also that if in the way of strengthening the relation between two objects, if a condition comes into play, if it comes in between the cause and effect, then that will also weaken the argument. What I mean is, for example, if A leads to B, right? If applying medicine A leads curbing of disease, now if I want to weaken this, I may suggest that yes, there were researchers who claimed that applying medicine A didn't lead to the desired results and curbing of the disease. But there is another way of weakening this statement. The another way is by putting a condition. Condition like, for example, medicine A will work on B only if it is used in sunlight, only if it is used prior to the disease infects you, only if it happens in adults. So if I keep such conditions, then this will weaken the argument of the author, because now we have now we have a hindrance that will impede the process. So such kind of statements which puts a kind of condition for the cause and effect to take place, such statements weaken the argument. So number D, which says that p oblonga should be applied in the forest before the infestation takes place, but we have already seen that already 70% of the forest is destroyed, right? So now this shows that yes, this now p oblonga cannot work in the forest, because this option says that if p oblonga has to work, then it has to be applied before the forest gets infested rather than after getting instant infested. So, and we already know that our present condition of the forest is somewhere like 70% of the forest is destroyed. So now p oblonga will not serve the purpose here. So number D definitely weakens the argument. Let's look at another option, number E. Number E says Greenwood forest has lost many maple trees because of fungus infection. Now that doesn't explain the effectiveness of p oblonga. The word p oblonga itself is not used here, and we are talking about maple trees here. So the forest is the kind of trees that we are dealing is also not described here. So definitely E will not come into the play. So definitely the answer is number D. Now this is the second part of the same question. It says that which of the following, if true, about p oblonga provide the strongest evidence that the plan will succeed. So now we have to find a strong evidence for the plan to work. So this is a strengthening question. In the prior question we saw that we wanted an option that can weaken the effectiveness of p oblonga, but in this question we need a proof, or we need an argument that can support the working of p oblonga, that can give us a proof that yes, p oblonga can be an effective medicine for the the scoleted beetles. Option A says it is spread by a variety of birds that nests in trees that are the homes of scoleted beetle larvae. So now you see, if this happens, if the birds are able to transport these p oblonga fungus into the homes of scoleted beetle, then definitely it will work to reduce the population of scoleted beetle. So if this is one situation, if this happens, then definitely p oblonga will act against this scoleted beetle larva, and it will decrease the population, because we know that inherently p oblonga has the potential to decrease population of scoleted beetle. It has that inherent quality. We only need a proper introduction of p oblonga into the forest so that it can reduce the scoleted beetle population. Now if these birds can facilitate this process, then definitely it can help in the reduction of the population of scoleted beetle, and as a result we'll see that this Dutch elm forest survives further. And the next option says it has been known to lie dormant within a tree for up to 10 years before it begins to reproduce. Now this is a major setback, an option that can deter the users from choosing this option, because p oblonga, if p oblonga lies dormant for around 10 years, and then it starts the reproduction process, and still we don't know that whether it will affect or how it will affect the scoleted beetles population, whether it will get introduced or not. So this looks like a major setback, so we won't choose this. We have a better option than B. Let's look at number C. It spreads more slowly than C. almi under most climatic condition, under most climatic situation. So you see that there is a comparison here, that the rate at which C. almi spreads is faster than the rate at which p oblonga will work. So if this is the scenario, then definitely p oblonga will fail to curb the effect of C. almi, the disease causing fungus, right? So definitely this will not be able to solve the problem. So that is a weakening one. This is a weakening argument. This shows why P oblonga will not be able to curb the disease, not the strengthening one that we need. So let's look into number D. It does not destroy some commonly found subspecies of scoleted beetles. Now that does not strengthen or weaken the argument at all, because we see that we cannot say that P oblonga directly or indirectly reduces or increases the population of scoleted beetle, right? It is working on some subspecies of this, so definitely that's not the kind of option that we need. uh, Number E says it has been known to kill maple trees by destroying their root systems. So, if we see, we are not concerned with maple trees, we are concerned with our green forest, with our greenwood forest, in which we have mature elm trees, right? So, we are not dealing with maple trees here. So, definitely that won't be our answer. So, A looks like the most suitable answer here. Let's look into the question. It is well known that human tears often serve to moisten the eye, protect it from infection, and wash away irritants. So, the normal human tears that are generally, induced due to this dust particles, and in normal circumstances these tears are called irritant or reflex tears. Reflex actions are those action that is produced suddenly due to certain kind of stimulus in the environment. So these are the reflex tears, the normal kind of tears that we know, irritant or reflex tears, that helps in to wash away the irritants which are there in eye, or to keep it safe, or to keep it clean and protect it from infection. So these are the normal tear, and this is the general job that it does. Dr. Field hypothesizes that emotional tears have a different biological origin. So we have this another kind of tear which is known as emotional tears, which has a different biological function. She suggests that by shedding tears when under emotional stress, people excrete harmful chemicals that build up in such body fluids as blood serum during emotional stress. So, what happens during emotional stress? Now, it has an added function. What it does is it removes or excretes harmful substances that builds up in the body fluid, like your blood serum, right? So it has this special feature. So we have two kinds of tears here. One is the normal reflex tears that get induced due to those the loose particles, dust, irritants, or all these things. And we have a second kind of tears, which is emotional tears, which is induced during emotional stress. You see, it is induced during emotional stress. So what is the specialty? It is like a the coping mechanism of the body. Whenever we are under emotional stress, it removes the harmful substances which are present in the body. So the question asks, each of the following, if true, provides some support for Dr. Field's hypothesis, except. Now I would like you to put your attention here, some support. So when they're telling to find an option that provide some support, it means that any minor idea which bolsters or supports any minor idea of the author, any premise of the author, any conclusion, any assumption of the author, that will support the passage, right? And but however, we have to find a question that doesn't do this, that weakens the stance of the author. We need to find that one. So let's see. The people most likely to cry when undergoing emotional stress are less likely to suffer from stress-related diseases than is the population at large. So it says that when somebody is under emotional stress and he or she is crying, then he is less, susceptible or less likely to suffer from stress-related diseases. Now you see, the passage doesn't talks about this. The question is like, if this is true, if this happens, will it support the argument of the author? Yes, it will definitely support the argument of the author, because under emotional stress, if somebody is secreting emotional tears, then what will it do? It will remove the harmful substance from the body, and thus it will help in reducing the probability of that person suffering from any stress related disease. So definitely, if this statement is true, it will support this argument of the author. So this is not the option that we need. We need an option that weakens the stance of the author, that does not support the stance of the author. So option B says, if a local anesthetic is applied to the surface of the eye, irritants and reflex tears are inhibited, but emotional tears are not. So what do you mean by an anesthetic agent? Any anesthetic agent is a chemical compound that numbs that place so that you don't feel the pain. So when this kind of local anesthetic is applied at the surface of the eye, we see that two things happen. One, it blocks the irritant or the reflexive tears. So when we are applying those anesthetic agent at the surface of the eye, it does blocks the irritant or reflex tear, but it is not able to block the emotional tears. Now here is one inference that you can do. Had the position been same for these two biological parts from which these two tears get triggered, so definitely this anesthetic agent would have blocked both of them. But since we see that one is getting blocked and other is not, definitely these two will have different place of origin. These two are secreted from two different places. Definitely this is not secreted from the surface, because had this been there, then definitely this would have got blocked, just like this irritant or reflexive tears. So it does supports the argument of the author that we have two different kinds of tears. So if this argument is true, then definitely it will support that there are two different kinds of tears and having different biological functions. So this is definitely supporting the stance of the author, I would say. And let's look into the next question and the next option. It says the chemical composition of tears that are induced by grit in the eye is identical to the composition of tears induced by emotional stress. And you see, grit means it's not the grit, the courage of the courage wala grit. A grit means the small stones or the flakes that that is loose in the air. If that gets into the eye, it produces irritation in the eye. Those are grit. So if the grit in eye, the chemical composition of tears that are produced by these things in the eye is identical to the composition of tears induced by emotional stress. If this is true, then this will mean that the emotional tear content is same as the content of tears that are produced during irritant or reflex tears. Now this is completely against the premise of the author. The author says that during emotional stress, harmful substances are created. So definitely, if harmful substances are being secreted, then definitely it's getting secreted from the emotional tears. Because when somebody is under stress and he or she is shedding tears, then definitely the excretion is happening from the tears itself, because at that point of time no other point of excretion is happening, and that has not been explained anywhere here that any other point of excretion is happening. So definitely during emotional tears, that entire episode of emotional tears, if some excretion is happening, that is happening through the emotional tears itself. And now we can say that if the harmful substances are excreted through emotional tears, then definitely the content of emotional tears will be far different than the irritant tears or the reflexive tears, because during reflexive tear no such kind of thing is secreted. So definitely these two will have different composition. So if this statement is true, this will weaken the stance of the author. So we will so this is our answer, C. So because we have an except question here. Now option D says the concentration of substance that the body produces only under conditions of emotional stress is 30 times greater in tears than in blood cells. Now this statement definitely supports the author argument. This says that during emotional stress, the tears that we produce it does contain high concentration of substances, the toxic contents. So that is definitely true. Number E, patients who suffer from a condition that prevents secretion of tears display a slower than normal physiological recovery from emotional stress. So if a patient is under emotional stress and is unable to secrete tears, it means that is unable to secrete emotional tears. If he is unable to secrete emotional tears, he won't be able to remove the harmful substances which are present in the body. And if he is unable to remove these harmful substances in the body, then definitely he will not get a speedy recovery. So this again supports the argument of the author.
So we have this question here of weakening. It says abolition of government regulation of airfares has increased competition among airlines and thus will eventually lead to compromise in airline safety. Anxious to reduce fares in what has, as a result of deregulation, become a highly competitive market, airlines will be tempted to reduce costs by decreasing safety inspection and routine maintenance of aircraft. Now, this question says that there has been an abolition of government regulation on airfares. Now that means that government no longer regulates the airfares, and thus this has led to an increased competition in the market. Why it has led to increased competition in the market? Because once government let the private companies loose, now these companies have no higher authority, so these companies will try to maximize their profit, and to maximize their profit they will try to reduce the price. So when there is a competitive market, the prices are tight, quite tight. The competitor cannot increase its price, cannot soar the price, because he knows that there is its competitor who is sitting with a lower price. So if I increase the price, the customer will get attracted to the competitor. So the prices are quite similar in a competitive market, and what these sellers do is reduce the price of their services or the products. So you see, if the airfares get reduced, then what will happen? As per the passage, at one place the prices are getting reduced, but on the other hand the safety is getting compromised. You see, in the statement it says, anxious to reduce fares in what has, as a result of deregulation, so deregulation has caused the reduction in fares, has become a highly competitive market, airlines will be tempted to reduce cost by decreasing safety inspection and routine maintenance of aircraft. So the author says that this airline companies will compromise the safety inspection and the cost which is needed to maintain the safety equipments and the safety aspects of the flight, and use this money to reduce the cost, to compensate for the reduction in airfares. So it will try to save money from all other places in order to give the customers lower tickets, so that it can have a competitive edge over the competitors. And this all is happening because there is no higher authority which will regulate the airfares. So the question asks that which of the following, if true, would cast the most serious doubt on the prediction that deregulation of airfares will ultimately compromise airline safety? So the question says that we need to weaken the argument that the deregulation of airfare will ultimately lead to a compromise in the airline safety. We need to prove that deregulation of airfares might not lead to the compromise of airline safety, right? So which is the option which is telling this? Let's look into option number A. Consumers select an airline as much on the basis of its safety record as on the basis of its fares. Now, if this is true, it means that consumers are choosing tickets or airlines just not on the basis of prices but also on the basis of safety. right? So if safety is priority for the consumers or the customers, then definitely it will not go for lower prices. If it is not going for lower prices, then definitely the airlines will not sell tickets at low prices. And if it is not selling at low prices, then it doesn't have to compromise the safety. So definitely this becomes a probable option for being correct, right? Number B, there are a number of mechanical problems that cannot be detected in the routine inspection of aircraft. Okay, so there might be some problems that might not be detected, that cannot be detected, but this remains a true before regulation and after regulation, right? So before deregulation. So option B says there are a number of mechanical problems that cannot be detected in the routine inspection of aircraft. Now that is not at all related to the problem, because if there are certain things which cannot be detected by routine inspection, that remains true before and after deregulation. If something cannot be found out by routine inspection, that remains true before the deregulation and after the deregulation. So this won't be able to explain the connection between deregulation of airfares and the safety compromise. Option C says that the amount of commercial air traffic has increased significantly since the regulation of airfares was abolished. So this says when the government abolished regulations, then there is a rise in the air travelers, rise in the customers. So does that explains anything about the safety aspects? We don't know whether these customers have looked into the safety aspects or not. We don't know whether the airline companies have reduced the price, reduced the safety aspects or not, right? This option doesn't touches the safety aspects. Option D, the number of airline bankruptcies has increased since the regulation of airfare was abolished. So just because airline bankruptcies has increased, that doesn't mean that it will lead to safety compromises, right? So this will be like a vague assumption if you choose this option. uh, it's a very tempting option that okay, someone might think that okay, so the airline doesn't have money, it has gone insolvent, so definitely it won't it will have to compromise with the safety. So now this is your assumption, this is something which is exclusive, which might happen, which might not happen. Until and unless the premises are explicitly stated, the conclusions are explicitly supported, we won't choose those options. Now, option E says when airfares were regulated, airlines were more inclined to invest in the development of new aircraft. Now, this means that when the government used to regulate things, then these airline companies were more eager to invest in the development of the aircraft. Now, this option doesn't mean that if that when the government will not regulate things, then the aircraft companies will not invest in the development, or it will compromise in the safety aspects of the airline, right? It does talks about what happens during regulation, but it does not gives us the hint to what may happen when deregulation occurs. So the answer is number A.